Well, when I proposed it, I was working for Mayor Abramson, and he kind of took it as a joke. He thought I was kidding. I wasn't really kidding. But the notion of dredging the south ditch, because at that point there had been a lot of flooding in that area, and if we created a HIG, a hole in the ground, as a water catchment, it would be a way to control some of the flooding in that area. And oh, and by the way, it could be this really incredible water sports center. The Ohio River is a wonderful river for folks like me who row boats across oceans, but for competitive rowing, competitive flatwater paddling, not so great, not very predictable. For example, I was supposed to go camping this last weekend with students. We were going to paddle out of Harrods Creek and paddle up to 12 Mile Island. Well, with the hurricane-fed winds, they were 15 miles an hour in the wrong direction, and we just couldn't get there. And there are lots of times when we schedule regattas and stuff, and we think, we just can't do it because the water's too challenging. We do very little, well, historically, Louisville has done very little to create amenities in the south end, and so creating this great waterway in the south end of Louisville, at the same time controlling water flooding issues, it just seemed like a great plan. Kay's just been down to Oklahoma City where they essentially did what we're proposing to do in an old riverbed. They dammed it and created a water sports center. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing. They used to refer to their river in Oklahoma City as the ditch, and I heard a number of times that it was did not have a lot of water flow. As a matter of fact, they had a contract and they mowed the river 3 times a year because it grew so much grass. So the Corps of Engineers went in and they actually widened it, made it deeper. They put in dams to control the water, and now it's one of the premier rowing centers. They also have kayaking, canoeing, and they are in the process of building their whitewater raft training center, which is pretty cool. But it was amazing what they were able to do. And as we crossed the river on our tour, even though it was windy, it was very, very rowable or paddleable, if that's a word. I think I just made it up. But it was amazing. And just out of happenstance, the Corps of Engineers made a 2,000 meter straight area, which is perfect for racing and competition. So they are really, really pushing the water sports in their area. It's revitalized that whole area of the city. People can go down and participate in water sports, either recreationally or competitively. It's now an Olympic training center, and it was amazing. And the energy around it, and the people, all different walks of life using that facility was really great to see.
Well, I think it found its way to you because I was being a smart aleck. The mayor was interested in a little boathouse that we have downtown here that's in a city-owned building. And also back during the time I worked for Mayor Abramson, I caused so much trouble about trying to get a downtown venue for rowing that he eventually relented. And the deal was we were just supposed to be there for a year or two in this vacant warehouse, and we were going to start rowing, and there was going to be this new boathouse built, and all this sort of stuff was going to happen. And I think they forgot that we were just supposed to be there for a year or two. It's been probably 15 years now.
Wow.
And Mayor Fisher wanted to know what the history was behind the building. And I said, well, it was an abandoned warehouse building full of city desks and warehouse stuff, and I begged David Karam, the head of waterfront development, to let us use it because I thought it was David's building. He kept saying, leave me alone, go away, we're going to tear down that building, it's ugly, it's terrible, we can't have that in Waterfront Park. And eventually I figured out it wasn't waterfront development property at that point. It may be now. I think that property switched hands on a number of occasions. And so I went to Joan Ream, who was then the deputy mayor, and while most folks in city government have a default setting that says no, 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 Joan's default setting was yes, or why not, let's figure it out. And so she asked the head of public works to empty out half the boathouse and let the rowers use it. And we started a high school rowing program, and we moved our adaptive rowing program from Harrods Creek downtown, because there was this little protected piece of water behind Towhead Island, which was great for adaptive sports. Since that time, it's sort of, the rowers have kind of taken over and they act like they own not only the building, but the dock and the ramp and the chute that's behind Towhead Island only belongs to rowers. I'm a little less possessive, but then I do most of my rowing right now out of Harrods Creek. And I think that there is plenty of room in Louisville, Kentucky for rowers and paddlers and kayakers of all kinds, and that it should be a more egalitarian place to live and be. And the South Ditch is really a matter of we have a critical mass now in a rowing community and the paddling community that creating a water sports center. And virtually every high quality Olympic racing venue for flatwater kayak and canoe have been human manufactured. They've been dug. Mm-hmm. And you can just see, you probably saw the pictures that I pulled off the internet at one point of all the Olympic rowing venues they essentially all look the same because they've all been man-made. And I don't know that we could pull off a full-fledged Olympic course in that original proposed area, but surely somewhere around here we could do that. I forget which road it is that goes over the South Ditch. There's one road that we'd have to reconfigure the bridge and make slots that would equate with rowing lanes. And it's more of a concept of there are so many folks involved. And it really is the kind of amenity that if you created it in the South End, suddenly East End wouldn't necessarily be the most attractive place to live in Louisville. There'd be folks wanting to move to this other waterway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the great thing about rowing and paddling is they're non-toxic sports, and it really is just normal water we're looking for. And the depth doesn't have to be tremendous. I mean, I think the depth required for an Olympic course is 12 feet, and the reason it has to be at least 12 feet deep. Otherwise, there's a certain amount of drag that the shallow water creates on boats. It slows us down. I never really could imagine how that shallow water could affect the drag, but every once in a while, like go over a shallow patch on the Ohio River, right near Harrods Creek, there's a sandbar, and if you go full speed across that sandbar, you'll feel the boat slow down, and so there's clearly drag created by shallow water, and it was one thing to be able to figure it out in the physics and drag coefficients. It's another thing to actually feel it. And be like, oh, it really does slow the boat down. Yeah. And so I don't think it would be challenging since the South Ditch is already a human-created structure, for us to dredge the ditch and to create essentially wetlands that don't now exist around the edges would be a good thing for the environment. I feel sure you could construct it in such a way that it would, if you built it 12 feet deep for, summer drought season, and you built the sides up, and what we're really talking about is a bulldozer for the summer, and built up the sides high enough that it could catch excess water of, 2,000 meters long, and I forget what the traditional width is for a Olympic venue, but let's guess 100 meters wide. That wouldn't be enough, but that's a lot of volume of water, and if you add a couple of extra feet to that volume, then you can catch a lot of rainwater in excess that wouldn't be flowing into, I think it was the Minor Lane Heights neighborhood that used to flood. Maybe still does, I don't know. But there's all that water runoff from the airport that comes in that direction. Well, I paddle very regularly on Harrods Creek, which is some of the most polluted water in the metropolitan district, because of the package treatment plants upstream that sometimes fail. So, and I don't typically go swimming, and only go rowing, but you do get backsplash and water that gets up on you, so it can't be toxic water you're rowing on. Yeah, I can't, you know, I often joke that Louisville, Kentucky is the home of all great ocean rowers. I can't honestly imagine that Louisville, Kentucky is going to become a mecca for Olympic and flatwater paddling. I could see us becoming a mecca for adaptive and rehabilitative sports, wounded warriors and things like that. So I could see this becoming a venue that is used by the hospitals, used by the VA, used by occupational therapists and sports therapists to get folks out on the water. It's a great equalizer. Kay and I used to talk about how great it was to look out on the dock and see a dock full of empty wheelchairs. Because once you're out on the water, you're not the same. And that's a pretty neat thing. So I can see it becoming that. There are so many places. New England is kind of the home for Olympic rowers. Paddlers kind of move around a little bit. And most of the paddlers are out in Chula Vista, California. But there are some wonderful venues. The great thing about Louisville is we're so easy to commute here. And Indianapolis has an excellent rowing course. I think it's one of the only FISA-approved courses in the country. Oklahoma City might be another. Mm-hmm. When it's on Eagle Creek, which is a reservoir, and it's a great venue, but it gets pretty windy. Mm-hmm. And so the building up those berms to catch the extra water would have the added effect of blocking away